Hello, I'm Kasia Madeira. You're watching The Context on BBC News. In the United States, Congressman Kevin McCarthy is battling to get elected as Speaker of the House, a position that would make him second in line to the presidency. Well, these are the images live from the House of Representatives, where a third vote is taking place. And it's the first time in 100 years that the House has failed to elect a Speaker on the first ballot. After a Ukrainian strike in the Donbass left many Russian troops dead and Moscow red-faced, we'll look at the political fallout within Russia. A rapturous welcome for Cristiano Ronaldo as he makes a multi-million-dollar move to Saudi Arabia. Tonight, with The Context, we're joined by Ron Christie, former advisor to George W. Bush, and Aisha Hazarika, journalist and former Labour advisor. Hello and a warm welcome to the programme. It's the first day of the new US Congress and already it's full of drama. After the swearing in of new members, the House of Representatives is stuck at the very first hurdle of choosing a new Speaker of the House. For the first time in 100 years, the House has failed to elect a Speaker on the first ballot. We've now had 2 rounds of votes, with Kevin McCarthy receiving 203 in both rounds, well short of the 218 majority that he needs. So let's turn to the scene live now, where we're expecting the House to vote in the third round. And, well, it's really important that this gets done because ultimately nothing can go ahead until a new Speaker is elected. So smiles there, but actually inside I'm sure he's not smiling. This could, in fact, go on for hours, perhaps even days, until someone is chosen. We'll go live to our correspondent Will Grant on Capitol Hill in just a moment. But I think first it's just worth reminding back to the days and the weeks before the midterm elections. All the polls were pointing to a resounding Republican victory in the House. A red wave that would have meant today would have been a simple coronation for Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. But, well, that red wave never came. And now Congressman McCarthy has to fight for every single vote, with a small group of Republicans from the right of the party refusing to back him for Speaker. Well, the Speaker is one of the most important jobs in US politics. As leader of the House, they control the legislative agenda and timetable in the Congress's lower body, as well as who sits on the huge number of committees. The Speaker is also second in line to succeed the US President, behind the Vice President, should both be unable to serve due to death, removal from office, or unable to fulfill duties for health reasons. So let's cross over to Capitol Hill because my colleague Will Grant joins us now. And Will, history in the making. We're in for a third round of voting.
Yeah, I mean, as you said in the introduction there, one might have expected at some stage that this could have been a coronation. It certainly was for the past 100 years. Not today, not by any means. 19 lawmakers, 19 members of the Republican Party showing their dissent to Mr. McCarthy by voting against him, voting for another candidate and leaving him well short of that 218 threshold he needs. Where do things go from here? Well, it just will continue on and on and on. I mean, in a sense, both sides are absolutely flatly refusing to back down, with Mr. McCarthy saying that he will not drop out of the race and his opponents saying that they have absolutely no intention of voting for him. So where does that leave things if it's not a sort of face-off for the time being? We'll see if some of the kind of negotiations going on behind the scenes between the rounds of voting can bring some of those dissidents over to his side.
And a lot of negotiations, a lot of conceding, arguably, in terms of what McCarthy is offering, but it just seems to not get to where he needs to be.
Yeah, right now it looks incredibly intractable, doesn't it? I mean, if you bear in mind that he's already made some pretty major concessions. For example, he changed the rules so that only 5 congresspeople on the Republican side would be required to mount a challenge to him and bring a vote to remove the Speaker from the chair. That's a big concession, and his supporters say that one that he should perhaps not have offered because it would leave him in a very vulnerable position to actually do the job. Other things may involve who sits on which committees and who will be chairman or chairwoman of which committee, you know, who gets what role, that kind of a thing. But quite honestly, if they are so lined up against him, as they do currently appear to be, it seems like there is no means under which they will accept his presidency or his role as Speaker, and you know, they're demanding that a different candidate be put forward.
Well, let's bring our panel in now. And Ron and Aisha, it's firstly, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, and what a start to the new year. Ron, let's start with you. Come on, what is going on here? In 100 years, this hasn't happened, and here we are. What's going on with the Republicans?
Happy New Year to you, too. What's going on with the Republicans is that as a party, we've not gotten our act together. We've had over a year to get our ducks in a row, to find out who can lead the caucus should we have the honor and privilege and the opportunity to lead the House of Representatives. And instead, what we found is there are about 10 to 20 Republicans who said, never Kevin McCarthy. I understand that. I understand that they are aggravated with him for not being conservative enough. I understand that there are moderates who say he's too conservative. But you have to come together as a party. So where are we now? We're headed to a third vote. We've not seen this since 1923. And I've been saying this on the BBC for 6 weeks, that Kevin McCarthy is not going to be, at least in the initial rounds, the next Speaker of the House. We'll see what happens tonight, tomorrow, in the days, weeks to come. But this could drag out for weeks. And it's an embarrassment. Why should the American people trust the Republicans to lead if they can't even do the most solemn responsibility of electing the Speaker of the House?
Ron, just putting you on the spot just for one more minute, because we're really lucky to have you tonight. What a historic day to have you on. When you're talking about the number of ballots that could potentially have, 100 years ago, it took 9 ballots. 1856, this is a statistic that just staggers me. The situation wasn't resolved until the 133rd ballot. Are we in for a really long run here, or will the Republicans, do they have to get themselves sorted out?
I think we could be in for a long run. If you look very carefully at the second ballot, Jim Jordan, the congressman from Ohio, got 10 votes. He got more votes on the second ballot than he got on the first ballot. And Jim Jordan put Kevin McCarthy, the presumptive Speaker of the House, into nomination to be the next Speaker, and yet and still, Kevin McCarthy can only lose 4 votes. Jim Jordan got 10. Where does that leave us? What does that mean for the House Republicans? I honestly have no idea how long this will take, but I suspect we won't resolve this today.
Well, as we speak, and hadn't Jim Jordan just earlier on today, during all of this, said he didn't want to put himself up. I mean, Aisha, in terms of when we were looking a little bit earlier on last year, indeed, when it came to UK politics, looks pretty straightforward compared to what we're seeing in the House of Representatives right now. Voting third round not yet underway. I'm keeping an eye on that. Don't worry, guys.
It's really interesting you mention UK politics, because that was exactly the thought that I was having as, you know, watching this play out. I was thinking, gosh, makes British politics look pretty calm. But I think you captured it in your introduction, which is one of the reasons that the Republicans are in such turmoil is because everybody, including the party strategists, lots of pollsters, lots of commentators, predicted that there would be this red wave, and that didn't happen. And I think what's now happening in the Republican Party, I think it's happened in the UK Conservative Party to a certain degree as well, it is a kind of an existential crisis about the future direction of the Republican Party. What is the heart of the Republican Party at the moment? Does it want to be more ultra-conservative, much more of the Donald Trump MAGA sort of party? Or does it want to try and get back to being the sort of GOP, a bit more of a one nation style of republicanism? And I think that is the fundamental unresolved battle and sort of conflict that's at the heart of the Republican Party. You know, we don't even really know who kind of leads the Republican Party at the moment. There isn't sort of one, you know, set of the good and the great. There's lots of people pulling in different directions at the moment. And I think we're seeing this play out with this very chaotic leadership for the election of the Speaker.
And as we await more when it comes to this third round of votes for Speaker of the House of Representatives. Will, I want to bring you back in because we're always talking about, we put US politics under a spotlight, but when it comes to this particular position, it is super important because, just explain to us, nothing gets done without this being decided upon.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's been mentioned that it's the second in line to the presidency. It's a role that obviously oversees everything from kind of the makeup of different congressional committees to all of the work that perhaps goes on behind the scenes, partly comes through the role of the Speaker in terms of working across the aisle. In a sense, all of this that's been alluded to about sort of fight for the heart of the party, I think, is why this has become so difficult and controversial, because there are such differing views of what the party should be that, you know, they're simply not prepared to let such a powerful role go to somebody they disagree with. And that goes, of course, for Mr. McCarthy's supporters too. They're not going to give up on it being him. If you listen to the rhetoric coming from both sides of this conversation, it is very, very entrenched. Neither one is prepared to sort of say, OK, well, you know what, there might be a second person that we're prepared to go with, at least for the time being, at least for this vote. We'll have to see as these votes continue. But, you know, it's already been 2 votes with 19 Republicans absolutely refusing to budge, voting as a bloc now. Yeah, where does it go from here? It is, as I say, with a role so important and so much ideology sort of linked to it, then, yeah, it's going to take some work to find grey area in which both sides can be broadly happy.
We'll let you get on and just monitor what is happening in the House of Representatives itself. But, Ron, let's just bring you back in. This idea of finding some grey ground, some area where there can be some agreement, where would that be in your thinking?
Well, my thinking, I think, Will hit it right on the head. I mean, I think this is a struggle for the soul and the heart of the Republican Party. Of what do we stand for? Is it the party of Donald Trump? Is it the party of conservatism? What does the Republican Party stand for at this juncture in the 21st century? And having worked on Capitol Hill for nearly 9 years in my early career, I can tell you this is so unprecedented. It's who's next, who has the most seniority, who has the longevity, who has the support of the party, of the caucus. And at this juncture, I don't think that we have one. Is it Steve Scalise, who is the presumptive House Majority Leader? I don't think he wants the job. Is it my friend Elise Stefanik, who's number 3? I don't think she wants it. So where we are right now is the Republicans are doing a lot of soul searching of what does it mean to be a conservative, not necessarily a Republican, but a conservative at this juncture in 2023.
And, Ron, Jim Jordan's just been nominated. Just fill us in a little bit about him. He received 19 votes in that second round. But if what you're saying is correct, and this is going to go on for quite some time, hopefully not 133 ballots, but quite some time, is there a chance that it could switch to somebody other than McCarthy?
I do, and for the conversations I've had, I was at breakfast this morning with several members of Congress and a senator, and they're starting to look for a unity candidate. Who could we perhaps nominate that could get Democrats to vote for a Speaker of the House in addition to Republicans? So what we are on the precipice, candidly, is a unity candidate that might not be a solid conservative rock rib Republican, but someone who could get over that 218 vote threshold, which I would find extraordinary if you had Democrats crossing over party lines to vote for a Republican.
Well, in that case, we're going to continue to keep the eye on what is happening in the House of Representatives, but I just want to cross over to the Senate and talk about its Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, because today he becomes the Senate's longest-serving party leader. The 80-year-old senator from Kentucky has fronted the Republican Party in the Senate for more than 16 years, and he surpasses former Senator Mike Mansfield, a Democrat from Montana. And that was quite Ron, again, once to you, quite a career there.
Quite a career, and one of the senators that I saw actually earlier today was Josh Hawley, who blamed the minority leader, Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, of we should have picked up more seats in the Senate. We should have. We should have picked up more seats in the House, and we should have, but we didn't. Why is that? I think that the status quo in Washington is holding on to power. I think the majority of the American people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, want their leaders to be responsive to the concerns of inflation, to high gasoline prices, and all the myriad of issues that we're dealing with. And there's a sense that people here in Washington, D.C. are out of touch with their constituencies, which is why those margins have been so small. And I think Mitch McConnell's days could be numbered. There are a lot of Republicans in the United States Senate who don't want them to be represented by the senior senator from Kentucky.
And it just goes to show how divided, polarised politics is at the moment. And while we're talking, we are, of course, keeping an eye on what is happening in the House of Representatives as the politicians there nominate and vote for a speaker. The historic third vote taking place right now, not seen in 100 years. A third ballot taking place right now. We are keeping an eye on it. But right now, let's bring our viewers up to date with some of the day's other stories making the headlines today. The government